I stared at my inbox for 3 days straight, where the subject line, Columbia University Presidential Scholarship, Financial Verification Required, sat like a cruel reminder. I knew what they needed. Just a simple statement confirming that my college fund was still intact. The same fund my grandmother, Margaret, had quietly built from her elementary school teacher's salary since the day I was born. The fund I believed would help me escape our fog-covered town in Montana, get into college, and pursue my dream of studying psychology. But now, that fund was nothing more than an empty memory. My name is Evelyn Turner. I'm 21 years old, living with my parents and older sister in a vintage 2-story house at the end of Pine Hill Road. And I'm watching my future collapse in front of me, with nothing to do but choke down the panic. That afternoon, when I walked into the kitchen, Mom was carefully arranging wedding flower samples on the table. Purple orchids, white peonies, even imported Italian blossoms. The entire dining table was covered in satin swatches, invitation proofs, and thick, deposit invoices. My sister Amanda was getting married next month, and her wedding was consuming the whole family. "Mom, I need to talk to you about the college fund," I said, my voice rasping with exhaustion. She didn't look up. "Evelyn, we've already been over this. The wedding's coming up, and these flowers won't pay for themselves." "But that money was mine. Grandma Margaret left it for me," I said, my voice trembling as a wave of quiet panic rose inside me. "Don't start that again," she cut me off, finally glancing up, her eyes sharp and cold. "A wedding only happens once in a lifetime. College will always be there. People take out loans all the time. You'll be fine." The front door suddenly swung open. Amanda walked in wearing nude high heels and carrying a dozen full shopping bags. "Mom, you won't believe the bridesmaid dresses I found. They're all matching, burgundy 100% satin, so luxe." I stood frozen, as if someone had slapped me. The same mother who had just dismissed me lit up like spring sunshine. "Oh my goodness, those sound gorgeous. Show me." They both squealed as they dumped the bags across the table, right on top of the scholarship paperwork I'd just printed out. "Careful, you're covering my documents," I said softly. Amanda gave a careless laugh. "Oh, sorry, but look at these, custom embroidered silk robes, only $35 each, total steal for something this perfect, right?" I picked up my now increased papers, bit my lip and quietly headed back upstairs. Behind me I heard Mom giggle. He seriously compared some dusty old college fund to her sister's big day? That night, I knocked on Dad's study door. He was glued to his laptop, but he let me in. "Dad, why didn't you say anything when Mom and Amanda drained my college fund?" He paused his typing and sighed, like I was bothering him with something trivial. "Evelyn, you're smart. You'll get scholarships, or work part-time. Amanda needs this wedding. She deserves one perfect day. You know how respected the Pattersons are." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. What about Grandma's instructions? She made it clear that money was only for my education. My mother didn't understand how the real world works. "Priorities change, life changes," he said, already turning back to his screen. I retreated to my room, heart pounding. From my drawer, I pulled out the last birthday card Grandma Margaret had sent me, just weeks before she passed. Inside, in her neat handwriting, she'd written, "To my clever girl. I've already made sure everything's ready, just in case." Those last 3 words, "just in case," cut deep. Just in case what? What had she seen coming? I grabbed my phone, scrolled through my contacts, and stopped on a name I'd never imagined dialing. My fingers shook as I pressed call. "Henderson Law Office, how can I help you?" "Hi. This is Evelyn Turner. My grandmother was Margaret Henderson." There was a beat of silence on the other end, then the woman's voice returned. Suddenly firm, serious. "I know who you are. You need to come to the office tomorrow at 9 a.m., and don't tell anyone, no one." The next morning, I arrived at Henderson Law Office 30 minutes early. holding the folder I had kept hidden in my drawer for years, copies of my education trust, and a preliminary version of Grandma Margaret's will I'd glimpsed back in high school. The receptionist led me into a private office. Ruth Henderson, daughter of Grandma's former legal partner, was a woman in her mid-50s. Her salt and pepper hair pinned neatly, and her sharp eyes scanning right through me. Evelyn. I imagine this isn't easy. But your grandmother once told me, if the day ever comes when she shows up, listen with your heart. Because that means she's standing alone. I bit my lip, throat tightening. Ruth opened a drawer and pulled out a sealed, ivory envelope. We'll get to this in a bit. First, I need to confirm something. Are you certain your education fund has been fully emptied? Yes, they never told me. There was no consent at all, I answered, trying to keep my voice steady. She nodded. I understand. And now, Evelyn, I need your full confidentiality. What your grandmother put in place isn't simple. That afternoon when I came home, Amanda and Mom's laughter rang from the living room, stabbing at my ears like needles. I didn't go upstairs. I walked straight in, still holding the printed enrollment schedule and financial verification form from Columbia. Mom, we need to talk, now. She didn't even look up from the seating chart. Amanda sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by bridesmaid gift boxes. Evelyn, I'm busy. Don't cause a scene, she said in a monotone, like swatting at a fly. You used my entire college fund to pay for flowers, the venue, the live band. Do you even realize what that means for me? I said, gripping the papers so hard they started to wrinkle. Amanda glanced up, eyebrows raised. Oh God, you're still on that? Plenty of people take out loans, it's not the end of the world. Mom finally set down her pen, sighing like I was the most exhausting person alive. You'll still go to school. Smart girls always find a way. But a wedding? This can't be postponed. This is your sister's moment. I'm not sorry for putting that first. Putting it first? I choked. What about Grandma's promise? All those years she saved for me. Mom's eyes narrowed. My mother didn't understand how things work anymore. She was always idealistic. Amanda needs me more. She doesn't have anything except this wedding. You? You have a scholarship, a brain. Don't be selfish. That word, selfish, landed like a stone. I almost lost my balance. That evening, I stepped into Dad's study. He was reviewing the guest list for a political fundraiser. He planned to run in the next election cycle. Dad, we need to talk. Still about the tuition money? He asked without looking up. Evelyn, you're strong. You'll manage. I believe in you. It's not about belief, it's about fairness, it's about respect. He looked up, frowning. Evelyn, sometimes you need to understand. Families can't cater to everyone. Amanda needs to move on from her past. She lost a pregnancy. She got cheated on. This wedding is her fresh start. You'd ruin that? I stood still. So being a victim automatically made someone the priority? Meanwhile I, who kept a 4 GPA and worked part-time for 3 years, got benched so she could start over? No one should have to sell someone else's future to rebuild their own, I said, every word cutting through the air. You say you love both of us, but your actions say otherwise. He put down his whiskey glass, voice quieter. Life isn't as neat as textbooks. One day, you'll understand. I walked out, heart heavy. On my way to my room, I passed Amanda leaning on the balcony, wineglass in hand, staring into the dark yard. You're blowing this way out of proportion, she said without turning. You'll get to go to college anyway. Stop making everything difficult. I looked at her. The satin of her dress caught the dim light from the hallway. The whole family revolved around her like planets around a sun. Difficult for who? I asked. For you? Or for the people who think you deserve more just because you know how to cry on cue? She turned to me, eyes wide. But I didn't wait for a response. I went straight to my room, door clicking shut behind me. My fingers still clenched the scholarship form, nails digging into my skin. I sat down, opened my laptop. Ruth Henderson's email was still there. Subject line, clear. Documents to review before moving forward. I clicked it open. This wasn't over. And for the first time, I knew with absolute clarity. They woke someone they thought would stay quiet. But I wasn't going to be quiet anymore. I couldn't sleep that night. Music from downstairs echoed until nearly 1 a.m. Amanda was testing wedding playlists, while my mother discussed how to build a fresh orchid arch with the floral designer. I lay in bed, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling, as if I could peel back the reason why the people I called family could so easily sacrifice my future. Around 2 a.m., I got up and opened the dresser drawer where I kept everything tied to Grandma Margaret. Inside was a small wooden box, its lid worn by time, with a hand-carved inscription. For my Evelyn, when she's ready. I opened the lid. A familiar, gentle scent wafted out. Old paper blended with the cheap but sweet lavender oil she used. Inside was a birthday card. The last one she ever sent me, for my 18th birthday, just a few months before she passed. I remembered reading it before, but I had never paid attention to the back. I opened the card. On the front were 2 owls in graduation caps, and inside, written in purple ink in her neat cursive. To my clever girl, remember? Not everyone will think about your future. But I have. Just in case. Just in case. Those 3 words echoed in my head, sending a chill down my spine. She knew. Somehow, she had seen what I hadn't been ready to admit. That my parents, the ones who looked so respectable and polished, would take everything from me if it served their purposes. I searched the box again and noticed a folded slip of paper tucked under the velvet lining. One single line, written in a fine, deliberate hand. Ruth Henderson. 406555892. Call if needed. Tell no one. I picked up my phone, hands shaking so badly I had to rest my elbows on my knees for support. I dialed each number slowly, like I was entering the code to a safe. Henderson Law Office, this is Ruth. How can I help you? I took a deep breath. My name is Evelyn Turner. My grandmother was Margaret Henderson. There was a short silence on the other end. Then Ruth's voice changed. Sharper, more guarded. I know who you are, say nothing else over the phone. Can you come to my office tomorrow morning at 9? I have a morning shift, but... Skip it, Evelyn, trust me. This is more important. What should I bring? Any documents related to the education fund, and a notebook. A pause. Don't tell anyone. Not even your parents. The next morning, I wore the white blouse Grandma once gave me, the one she always said made me look like someone going somewhere. I didn't own a car, so I took 2 buses to reach Ruth's office. A weathered 3-story building in downtown Helena. Her office was on the 3rd floor with windows overlooking the lake. I sat in a velvet-cushioned wooden chair, palms still damp with sweat. Ruth entered holding a leather case. She looked stern, but there was something in her face that reminded me of Grandma Margaret. Understanding eyes, a posture that didn't yield. Evelyn, before I say anything else, I need you to confirm. Are you absolutely certain the funds were withdrawn without your written consent? I handed her the bank statement I'd pulled. My name sat above a bold $0.00 balance, with a note that read, transferred under family authorization. I never signed anything, I was never informed, I said. Ruth flipped through the pages, nodded. Just as I feared. Now let's move on to what your grandmother prepared. She opened the case and pulled out a thick stack of papers and a sealed ivory envelope. Margaret didn't just establish a college fund. She tied it to a legally binding clause. If any funds were withdrawn without the beneficiary's written approval, that's you, then all her remaining assets would be frozen immediately. They can only be accessed again once the education trust is fully restored. My jaw dropped. Wait, she left other assets? Ruth smiled. More than you'd expect. But that's for later. What matters now is that by withdrawing the funds improperly, your parents have unknowingly locked themselves out of everything else, including her retirement accounts and real estate holdings in Texas. They had no idea? No. She intentionally requested that clause not be disclosed in the main will, only activated upon violation. And now, it has been. I leaned back in the chair, my heart thudding in my chest. Ruth slid the sealed envelope across the desk. This is her final letter to you, meant to be opened when the clause was triggered. And Evelyn, she looked me in the eye. She didn't just want to protect her money. She wanted to protect you from people willing to trade your future for a party's centerpiece. I clutched the envelope, throat tightening. I didn't know what I would do next. But I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't alone anymore. I left Henderson's law office with Grandma Margaret's letter clutched tightly in my hand, my heart feeling both hollow and on fire. On the bus ride home, Ruth's words still echoed in my mind. Your parents didn't just cross an ethical line, they violated the law. And in doing so, they've unknowingly cut themselves off from every remaining asset. Grandma's trap wasn't revenge, it was protection. A carefully built net by someone who had watched her own family unravel over money. A silent warning. If they dared to touch my future, they'd pay the price. That evening, when I returned home, the front door was wide open. I could hear my mother's voice rising in the living room. This can't be happening. I used that money for the family. Why would the bank freeze it? I quietly stepped closer, standing behind the half-closed door. My dad was on the phone, face flushed red, clutching freshly printed bank statements. I'm a joint account holder, how can access be denied? No, I didn't know about any clause. Margaret never said anything. My mother chimed in, her voice edged with panic. What about the final payment for the reception? Did you send it? I tried, Dad barked. Transfer was declined. They said it requires confirmation from Evelyn. The air in the house turned dense, heavy as stone. I pushed the door open. Mom flinched. Evelyn. You know something about this? I sat down across from them and pulled the envelope from my bag. Clearly marked with the law office's seal. Grandma knew this day would come. She left a clause. If my college fund was accessed without my legal consent, all her remaining assets, including retirement funds and real estate in San Antonio, would be frozen immediately. Dad shot up from his chair. No way. I'm a cosigner on that account, I have rights. You have a name on paper but no rights once you violate the terms. And you did. When you moved all of my college savings into Amanda's wedding budget, without my knowledge, you triggered the clause. Everything is now locked. Mom went pale, like someone had poured ice water over her. Can you authorize it again? I mean, if you agree, can we get access back? I shook my head. It doesn't work like that. Once the clause is triggered, access is only restored if the full amount is returned, principal and interest. According to Ruth Henderson, the current shortfall is $86,000. Not including interest. Silence fell like a brick wall. Dad sank into his chair, looking 10 years older in a matter of seconds. Mom folded her hands, like she was praying. Evelyn, please, you don't understand. I've sacrificed so much for this family. We've got over 150 guests coming, hotel bookings, catering, photography, all deposits paid. If we don't get that money, we'll be fined, humiliated. I gave a bitter laugh. You weren't this concerned when I lost my shot at Columbia, but suddenly, a reception deposit gets your blood boiling? That's interesting. Dad snapped. Are you trying to get back at us? Don't you see the whole family's in crisis? I tightened my fingers. I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to do. I'm the sole beneficiary of the education trust. The one Grandma trusted. The one this family betrayed. Amanda suddenly walked in, wearing a pink robe, hair still damp from a shower. What's going on in here? Mom got up, almost tearful. Amanda, there's a small issue with the final wedding payment. A small issue? I let out a short laugh. You mean the part where they stole my college fund and now triggered the freeze on Grandma's entire estate? Amanda stared at me. What are you talking about? I stood, meeting her eyes. Grandma wrote a legal condition. When Mom and Dad took my education money, they triggered it. Now, no one can access a cent. Her jaw dropped. Oh, what? You can fix it, right? Just sign something, let them use part of it. We just need to save the wedding. No, I cut her off. I'm not signing anything. Because this isn't about money anymore. This is about justice. I turned and walked up the stairs, leading behind a rising tide of chaos. At the bottom of the steps, Mom choked out. We're going to lose everything. Dad slammed his fist on the wooden table. Why would she do this? Why would she put Evelyn above the whole family? I stopped on the third step, not turning around. Because she was the only one in this house who saw me as a person, not as a resource to be used. St. Thomas Church sat nestled in the Glacier Valley like an ancient castle tucked among pine trees. The sky that day was unnaturally blue, the sunlight so crisp that each leaf cast a sharp shadow on the white stone path outside the gate. A perfect day for a wedding. At least, to the outside world. I walked slowly into the hall, wearing a simple navy dress. The only thing in my closet that passed my mother's appropriate standards. My name wasn't on the printed guest list, but the usher seemed to have been informed. She gave a small nod and guided me to the very last row, beside a thick pillar that blocked most of the view. No one turned around, no welcoming smiles, no invite to join the family photos. I didn't need any. I wasn't there to celebrate, I was there to observe. To witness exactly what Grandma Margaret once called the long descent into delusion. The music swelled as Amanda appeared in an ivory Vera Wang gown, its train trailing over 10 feet, lined with delicate pearls. The guests rose in unison. I remained seated. My mother cried. Genuinely cried. Even though 2 days ago she was begging me to sign the access reinstatement form, like I was some bank clerk. My father looked like he had aged a decade in a single week. I saw him hiss something under his breath as the wedding coordinator approached him with the final invoice. He didn't sign. The man walked away, his face blank. The ceremony played out like any high-budget wedding film. The bride beamed. The groom, Zachary, a young real estate lawyer, recited vows that sounded scripted from a primetime drama. I heard none of it. I only saw my father, folding the paper that read, "Credit card declined," and tucking it into his blazer pocket. After the ceremony, guests were invited to the reception at the Fairmont Chateau. I thought about going home, but a part of me needed to see how this play ended. I boarded the shuttle with distant relatives. No one recognized me until an elderly woman whispered, "Aren't you Evelyn, the youngest Turner girl?" I nodded. She smiled faintly, then looked away. The venue looked like a dream. Chandeliers, floating floral arrangements, French wine chilled in silver buckets. But I noticed something different. The staff had begun clearing out secondary buffet tables. One whispered something to my mother, and her face drained of color. I sat near the entrance, away from the traffic of servers. An hour later, as the dancing began, my father pulled my mother outside. I followed quietly. They stood near the hydrangea-lined fence, speaking in tense whispers. "All the cards are frozen. The short-term loan was rejected yesterday. Do you get it? There's no way to pay for this reception. You have to do something, Turner. If we don't pay tonight, the hotel can cancel the honeymoon package and demand prepayment for every service we've used. I cleared my throat gently. What's going on? I asked, keeping my tone neutral. My mom turned around. Her eyes rimmed red. Evelyn, please, just sign the release. We'll pay you back. I don't need the money, I said calmly. I need respect. I need them to know I'm not a resource for their performance. My father slammed his hand against the railing. This is family. How can you stand by and watch everything collapse? I looked at him, feeling a strange calm settle over me. Dad. Things didn't start falling apart today. They started the moment you took my tuition fund without a word. This wedding? It's just the curtain finally falling. Suddenly my mother's phone rang. She answered, and from the look on her face, I knew something worse had just hit. What? No. No, how can they cancel the honeymoon suite? We already booked it. I turned back toward the reception hall, leaving the two of them sinking in the mess they made. As I crossed the dance floor, Amanda and Zach were spinning under the lights, smiling, laughing, oblivious. Not yet. I took a seat and poured myself a glass of water, my eyes drawn to the chandelier above, glittering like stars in a world that was never mine. Just 3 weeks after the wedding, they once called the beginning of a new era for the Turner family, the entire house descended into chaos. Like a never-ending drizzle over the Montana plains. Amanda and Zach had moved into the downstairs living room after their lease was canceled. The landlord discovered the deposit check bounced, their credit card had been declined. Friction built quickly. Now that no one could pretend to be the successful one. The money was gone. My mother's precious Montana Hills Club membership, where she boasted about afternoon tea with the town's ladies, had been revoked after 3 months of unpaid dues. I saw the cancellation letter in the mailbox, printed boldly in red. Membership canceled. She stuffed it under a pile of magazines, but I saw it. Just like I saw all the other envelopes, the banks, the credit card companies, and the venue, demanding final payment with a legal warning attached. The house felt like a ticking time bomb, and I was the only one not holding the fuse. That night, I was typing up a scholarship application for a private foundation when Mom knocked on my door. No scolding, no tears, just a breath of a voice. Evelyn, can you come downstairs for a minute? The family needs your help. I followed her to the dining room. Dad sat at the head of the table, Amanda next to him. Her eyes red, but her face cold. Zach wasn't there. Mom pulled out a chair for me across from them. You know what's going on, Dad began. We've hit a wall. All accounts are locked. So? I replied evenly. If you sign this, Mom said, sliding a stack of papers toward me. Just a simple consent to allow us partial access to the trust. Enough to pay for the honeymoon and a few pending contracts. The bank might reconsider and reopen the rest. Partial access? I smirked. It was for the wedding before. Now it's just a little help? And after that? Amanda jumped in. Can you stop acting? You already have everything. While the rest of us are drowning, you're just sitting there like some damn princess watching us sink. I locked eyes with her. I'm not acting. I'm holding on to what's mine. You can call that selfish or cold. I don't care anymore. Mom's aging herself to keep this house afloat, Amanda hissed. And you won't budge. She once looked me in the eye and called me selfish for wanting an education. I haven't forgotten. And if she's tired now, it's from the weight of her own choices. The air thickened. I stood up. I'm not signing. Not today, not tomorrow, not ever. Dad slammed his palm on the table. You don't see her dragging this family off a cliff? I'm just letting the family face the cliff they dug themselves. It's not my fault it's this deep. I turned to walk away, but Amanda leapt up, rounded the table, and smack, a burning slap landed across my cheek. Everything froze. I raised my hand to my face. No crying. No flinching. I just stared at her. Thank you. Amanda stepped back, stunned. What did you just say? Thank you, I repeated. Because you just proved Grandma right, that she was the only one who ever truly protected me in this house. That greed, whether wrapped in wedding gowns or sweet words, is still greed. Mom broke into sobs. Dad looked away. Amanda stood still, her hand trembling from the blow. I walked back to my room. The door closed behind me with the finality of a declaration. I wasn't the quiet girl from 2 years ago. I was Evelyn Turner. And I would not sign away my value again. The next day, an email popped up from the Clover Foundation. Congratulations, Evelyn, you're in. I smiled. Not from the thrill of victory, but from the quiet certainty that I had chosen me. And no one would take that away from me, ever again. 3 months after the wedding, they once called the dawn of a new chapter for the Turner family. The nameplate "The Turners" was removed from the pale cream house at 4788 Maple Street. I heard the news from Mrs. Felton, our old neighbor who still fed the stray cats on the porch. She called me in a whispery, excited tone. Your mother moved out this morning. The moving truck blocked the whole street. They left a note for the new owners. Looks like a young couple from Missoula. I wasn't surprised. After my parents hired a private attorney to sue Ruth Henderson for breach of fiduciary duty, the federal court took just 30 minutes to dismiss the case. The final ruling affirmed every clause Grandma Margaret set up was legal, irreversible, and that there was no misconduct on the part of the estate attorney. The legal fees were the final blow to finances already decaying from the inside out. I didn't return to witness them move out. But I saw the pictures, sent by an old friend from the neighborhood. In one, my mother stood beside a cardboard box, hair pinned up but messy. My father, now gaunt and grayer than I ever remembered, was arguing with the moving truck driver over an unpaid invoice. Amanda wasn't in the pictures. I had moved into a small apartment near Columbia University. The scholarship from the Clover Foundation covered not only full tuition but also enough living expenses for me to live independently and debt-free. The apartment was just a notch larger than a dorm, but it had a big window overlooking a tiny park and a clean electric stove. I placed Grandma Margaret's photo on the bookshelf, right next to her final birthday card. One evening in early October, just as I was steeping tea, the doorbell rang. It was Amanda. No satin dress, no designer handbag. Just a light gray sweater, faded jeans, and her hair tied back loosely. And for the first time, I saw a real person. Not the image our family tried to paint. Do you have a few minutes? She asked. I nodded and opened the door. She stepped in, her eyes scanning the cozy, modest space. This place? It's yours? We sat at my tiny dining table. No one spoke for the first few seconds. Then she exhaled. I'm sure you've heard everything. About Mom and Dad. About Zach. I nodded gently. The news had spread quickly. Zach filed for divorce 8 weeks after the wedding. The reason listed: irreconcilable differences in lifestyle and financial expectations. In plain English, my family wasn't as rich as he thought. You don't have to forgive me, Amanda began. And I'm not here to ask for money or anything. I just needed to talk. I stayed quiet, listening. When Grandma passed, I thought things would get easier. Money, the wedding, the family image. I never thought she'd leave everything in your hands. But looking back, I understand why. She let out a quiet, regretful laugh. You're the only one in the family with a real backbone. You held your ground when no one respected you. And I was jealous. I didn't speak, but my chest didn't feel heavy anymore. Something in her voice, finally, carried no expectations. just truth. I'm working at a mental health clinic in a small town near Butte. Every day teaches me that when you lose everything, you find what matters. And what did you find? I asked. Myself, she said. And you, Evelyn? You did what none of us had the courage to do. You drew a line, and you kept it. She stood up. Thank you for listening. I know I lost the chance to be a real sister. But if one day, you need someone beside you instead of across from you, I hope you'll think of me. I walked her to the door. When it closed behind her, I could still see her silhouette in the glass. Small, imperfect, but real. That night, I sat by the window. The autumn wind fluttered Grandma's photo. I thought about what she had done. Not to punish but to empower. Not just the power to hold money, but to say no. To protect my future. To write my own story. I was no longer Evelyn Turner, the overlooked youngest daughter at family dinners. I was Evelyn, the one Grandma believed in. The woman rebuilding her life with her own hands and resolve. And for the first time in years, I knew I wasn't living to please anyone anymore. I was living to be myself. That Thanksgiving reunion was held at my uncle's house, Uncle Richard, the only person in the family who invited me without attaching conditions. I hesitated. But then I realized I didn't have to keep running. And I didn't have to sit in silence either. I wasn't going to make peace. I was going to close a chapter. His home sat on the outskirts of Bozeman, backed by early-season snowfields. When I walked in, the room seemed to freeze for a moment. My mother sat at the tea table, wrapped in an old wool coat. Her hair no longer meticulously curled. My father was pouring cider. Amanda sat in the corner, cupping a steaming mug, eyes briefly meeting mine, before dropping. Evelyn, you came, my mother said, her voice trembling as if that alone could erase the past. I nodded politely and took the wooden chair near the fireplace. No one spoke. The only sound was a kettle whistling in the kitchen. At last, Uncle Richard gently placed a hand on my shoulder and asked, "Would you like to say something?" I stood, my gaze sweeping the room, a space that had served as the stage for countless family performances over the years. I looked into the eyes that had once made me feel small, insufficient, unworthy. Now, those eyes were tired, empty, and still unaware of what they'd truly lost. I just want to say one thing, I began, steady and calm. For years, I believed if I worked harder, sacrificed more, I'd finally be seen. That if I stayed quiet, things would smooth over. But they didn't. My silence only made you think I agreed with how I was treated. I paused, turning to my mother. You called me selfish when I talked about college. You called Amanda Hope, someone who deserved a second chance. And me? I was just your emergency wallet. She opened her mouth, but I raised a hand. I don't need your apology. I don't need you to say, you didn't know. Because you did. You just chose not to care. I turned to my father. You always said, family comes first. But when I needed a question answered, a hug, you chose your hollow reputation instead. I took a deep breath. I'm not here to blame, I'm here to forgive. The air shifted. My mother looked at me like she couldn't believe what she was hearing. But not because you deserve it. Because I deserve to let go. My mother cried. Quietly. Without drama. For once. Evelyn, I lost you, didn't I? I stepped forward, placing my hand on the table where hers clenched the edge of the napkin. You didn't lose me. You just didn't try to keep me. I turned to Amanda, who had remained silent. Thank you for coming to see me. I can see you're trying. That matters. I hope you find peace. Not under stage lights, but in yourself. She nodded, her eyes glassy. I picked up my coat and stepped into the early winter breeze. It wasn't cold. I felt lighter than I had in years, as if I'd been carrying a house built on broken expectations on my back. and I'd finally put it down. The next week, I returned to New York to begin my first semester in library and information science at Columbia. The campus was grand, historic, full of people who knew nothing about me, which was more beautiful than anyone could imagine. I moved into a smaller apartment, sharing it with my boyfriend Tyler, whom I'd met at the public library. He worked in data systems, quiet, but always listening. Once, I told him about Grandma Margaret. He gently placed his hand on her photo and said, "She raised you from afar. And you've kept every part of that love intact." One afternoon, while organizing rare books in the university library, I stumbled across an old leather-bound notebook titled, "Stories That Deserve to Be Told." I didn't know who left it there, but I smiled, because I knew exactly what I would write on the first page. My name is Evelyn Turner, and for the first time, I'm the one holding the pen. Evelyn's story is a powerful reminder that family ties should never require the sacrifice of your self-worth. In real life, many stay silent to keep the peace, only to lose opportunities and themselves. But like Evelyn, setting boundaries and defending your future isn't selfish, it's growth. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, it means choosing freedom. And sometimes the most important journey is learning how to live without needing validation from those who once dismissed you. What do you think of Evelyn's choice? Would you have the courage to do the same? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to follow the channel for more powerful family stories to come.